I'm headed for a land that's far away, beside the crystal fountain. So come with me, we'll go and see the big rock candy mountains.
And we're on. This is the Great Classic Rock Debate. I'm Kenny.
I'm Paul with 0 qualifications.
And I'm Steve.
And we talk about anything and everything classic rock. We try to keep it interesting. We try to have fun. If you're watching right now, please like, comment, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to check out Professor of Rock and Rick Beato. I haven't mentioned them in a while, but I love those channels. And also check out our sister channel, The Great Classic Movie Debate. Okay, last week, we started into greatest rock guitar solos of all time. And it seems like the time just flew by because we were just getting started and all of a sudden we're out of time. But because of that, we're going to go ahead and continue with that one tonight and add a few more to the list. Now, does anybody have anything that they want to start off with?
I'll start with one, and that way, because I'm very simple-minded, and then just want to get off my chest. It's one of the catchiest songs ever written, ever. And the guitar solo, it's only like maybe 12 or 13 seconds long, but it is so clever. It doesn't have to be 3 minutes like we talked about. And it's Living After Midnight by Judas Priest. Okay. That little guitar solo is, and he's going right back into the chorus. I'm like, that's a clever little guitar solo right there. I like that a lot. So that's my start off.
Okay. All right, good one.
No, that's a good one, Paul, because I do believe some of the best guitar solos are much shorter than some of your more epic ones. And so the next one, and I can't believe I didn't mention this last week, but it was on my list, was Detroit Rock City. Again, it's a very short guitar solo in the middle of the song, and they almost kind of just play the same riff as the main song there, but it's not that long. It seems longer than it actually is, but it's probably only maybe 4 measures long. So
yeah, yeah.
And it was probably I think the first guitar solo that I actually ever learned, mainly because it wasn't as fast, except that very little part at the end. There's a quick little run there in a bunch of 16th notes, but most of the solo is pretty much, I think, probably quarter notes. So it's an easy kind of solo to learn because of the scale that they play, and again because of the tempo, but still really great. Love Ace Frehley, so maybe we can get him on the show one time.
Hey, that would be very cool.
Hey, listen, go ahead, Steve.
You guys forgive me for this, but I'm going to veer off topic just for a second and come right back. I promise.
Veer away.
Did you ever see that movie? It was like more than 20 years ago. I think it was called Detroit Rock City. These buddies, they're teenagers. They're like 15. They're trying to get to a Kiss concert.
Didn't you guys see this movie?
Oh my God, it was fantastic. It's become forgotten over time. But man, that movie was so good. It was. We might have seen it together.
Let me help you with that one. I actually spoke to Gene Simmons about this whole thing.
Okay.
He came into one of my classes at UCLA. Came in for like 2 hours, and all these people were kissing his ass.
Was he cash or charge?
It was gold.
Right.
No, he was
gold only.
He was very nice to me. His wife was not so nice to me. She was kind of a butthole. But I got pictures. Next week I'll show you the pictures. But I said, hey, let me do a biopic. He goes, we've tried, and the studios won't do it. And I'm like, what? He goes, that's why they made me settle to do that Detroit Rock City movie. And I'm like, look, I like the movie. Don't get me wrong, but
it was awesome.
But you guys, a biopic of you guys being Jewish and you coming from Israel and your mom was in the I mean, that whole thing has got to be factored into the story there. And he's like, yeah, they won't. I've tried. And I'm like, oh my God. And while we're on
Kiss is probably the greatest American band of all time.
They could be. I won't argue that for 1 second. Yeah, Steve, you could be right. Although Steve earlier picked the Doors, I think that's just good as
that's a good call. Yeah,
that was a good one, Steve. None of us had ever thought of that before. Steve got that one. But Ace Frehley. Well, no, but you okay. Ace Frehley never gets the love that he I don't know why that is. I don't know if there's a schism in the band, but that man is a very good player. Go ahead, Steve.
Amongst the Kiss army, amongst the Kiss fans, certainly he gets his dues. I would say, yeah, outside of kind of the hardcore Kiss fans, most people probably don't know who he is. But if you think about it, how many bands are there? I don't want to get us really off topic, but how many bands are out there that the general public or the general fan base knows the name of every member in that band? And it's very few. And think about today, the bands that are out there. Maybe you know one person, the lead singer.
Yeah.
But it's very rare that people know, can name two members of the band.
No, you're right.
All right, Kenny, you're up, buddy.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go. This is actually going to be an addendum to something something I had started last week. So it didn't occur to me till after we were finished. I did a twofer, and it should have been a threefer because I left one name out that fit right with it. The two that I named were Joe Satriani and Steve Vai, okay? And the reason I put those together was because their songs were released contemporaneously, like 89 and 90, right at the same moment. And rock radio largely just ignored it, never played it. And it's some of the greatest guitar playing that you'll ever hear. Well, in spite of my brain fart, I later recalled that Eric Johnson released his, which, by the way, that song got more airplay than the other ones, even though I don't think they play it anymore today, but it did get some airplay back then. The song is Cliffs of Dover, and that thing will make your head spin. Oh my God. Really, really fantastic.
That was on my list. That was on my list for the next solo. But
okay.
I agree 100%. The tone on that. And maybe the reason why I didn't include it in the last episode is because I feel like the whole song is almost one long guitar solo.
It almost is. It almost is. I mean, there's not one moment of it that his wizardry doesn't just shine through. I mean, it's something else to listen to.
Okay.
So I'm converting that from a twofer to a threefer. Joe Satriani, Steve Vai, Eric Johnson.
I'm going to say one that's weird in the fact that the solo starts at the beginning of the song, and that's All Along the Watchtower, Jimi Hendrix's cover of Bob Dylan.
Right.
Woo, 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 woo. He's starting on, and then it comes in. The song kicks in. If you think about it, he starts out with the guitar solo.
He does.
And so I mean, he's so powerful. But I don't think, other than live, I don't think he just went on these rambling solos. I don't think that was his deal. Although he was ripping away. I mean, get me wrong.
Yeah. I think I told you the story that when I saw Forrest Gump in the movie theater, when that scene comes in where the first notes of All Along the Watchtower playing out, it sent a chill up my spine and the hair on my arm stood up. I'm like, oh my God, to get that sort of a physiological reaction to that opening guitar work, man, I'll tell you what.
It's Vietnam, you can't. Steve, your turn.
All right, so this is a little bit of a curveball. So Hotel California, but not the album version. If you are familiar with the unplugged version that came out probably about 1994 on the Hell Freezes Over record,
okay,
it's an acoustic version. And there's really, at the beginning of it, it's kind of a duel between Joe Walsh and Don Felder, and it's all acoustic. And if you're not familiar with it, I mean, back in the 90s, they played it to death on the radio.
Yeah.
And occasionally, every now and then, you'll hear it, especially on Sirius XM. But I think that far surpasses the album version, just with the technical playing on that, especially at the beginning with the two, the way Don Felder and Joe Walsh kind of just the synergy that they created. It's really fantastic. So check it out if you're not familiar with it.
Okay. Have you heard that, Paul?
I'm not sure. I have to go back because I think Steve's right. It was ubiquitous on radio for a while, so I probably have heard it.
Right.
I'm not the biggest Eagles fan as Steve and but I do like them.
I'm slowly turning you on to them.
Yeah. In 100 years, I'll be a big fan. I'm just kidding.
I like the Eagles. I like the Eagles, but at the time that album was released in the mid 90s, that one song called Love Will Keep Us Alive was the one that was getting all the airplay.
Yeah.
And to me, it's an okay song, but it didn't have the staying power that some of the other ones had.
Kenny,
Okay.
you going next?
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and go. All right, so there's a lot of songs we could name by Carlos Santana because he's a great guitarist. And by the way, one of the things I've noticed over, I don't know, the last 25 or 30 years or whatever, this guy played on a lot of records of other artists, you know, where they hired him to come and be, because I hear songs every now and then, I listen, I go, that sounds like Santana. It's not a Santana song, but I'm listening to the guitar. His style is so unique, and it stands out in the crowd. And I listen, I go home and look it up, and sure enough, it was. So so the song I'm going to name by Carlos Santana is actually an instrumental. You guys have heard it. It's called Europa, and it's bluesy and jazzy, and it's a great song. As a matter of fact, there is a jazz artist named Gato Barbieri who recorded a jazz version of it on the sax, and that has become one of the most enduring smooth jazz hits of the last 50 years, I guess. But the Santana version is amazing and awesome, and yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in. This is a song that Kenny turned me on to, and I first said, "Oh, this is pretty good," and only by the next 6 months I realized I need to worship every time I hear the song. It's called "The Cowboy Song" by Thin Lizzy.
Oh,
At the end of that song, those two Americans are Gorham, and I forget the other guy's name. Oh God, don't get mad at me. They are just ripping away, and I'm like, oh my Lord, they are shredding. But it's within the context of the song.
Right.
And you turned me on to that song, Kenny,
yes.
so you get full credit for that.
Quick little backstory. So
and Paul turned me on to that. So
yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
76 summer of 1976. I was about 15. I had my first job ever as a busboy. Absolute worst job a person could ever have. I knew then I was never going to work in another restaurant, but I remember hearing this song on the radio. The Boys Are Back in Town. I'm hearing it quite a bit, and I'm going, wow, I really, really like that song. It's got that sort of anthemic sound, and so I saved up my dimes and went and bought the album Jailbreak. Okay. And brought it home and played it. And within 1 or 2 plays, I go, okay, there's no weak tracks on this album. It's fantastic. Jailbreak, and of course the Cowboy Song. And I was just hooked. I was ready to make Thin Lizzy my favorite rock band till eternity, just based upon that one song. So over the years, I've really gotten a charge out of turning people on to the Cowboy Song. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Cowboy Song is one of my Desert Island top 10 songs.
Yes.
I could not live without that song. So I listen to it probably at least once a week at the gym. So yeah. So thank you, Kenny, for turning Paul onto it.
Thank you, Kenny, for turning me onto it. And I saw there's a I haven't seen it yet, but it's a documentary about Phil Lynott. So I have to see it before I can recommend it. I don't want to recommend it and then it'd be like, you know.
Right.
Of course, Phil Lynott could walk in a room and fart. We'd probably like it, but
right.
Well, Thin Lizzy is probably one of the most influential bands of all time. They're not the most recognized as far as like just fans and to the general public, but if you ask any musician who grew up at that time frame, they all worship Thin Lizzy.
Yeah, and that's the sign of real talent right there. The ones who other musicians are trying to emulate. Yeah.
Steve, it's your turn, I believe.
Yeah.
All right. So it's a classic rock band in my book, but this is one of their more recent songs. Halo on Fire by Metallica. This is the name of the album now is escaping me. Hardwire for Self-Destruction. It came out about 2016. But that's probably one of their more epic songs that they've released in their entire catalog. It's probably about 8 minutes, but the solo kicks in at about the 6-minute mark, and then they go back into another verse, and then at the 7-minute mark, they come into another solo. Again, it's not as fast. It's kind of like Detroit Rock City, where the first solo is pretty slow, and then the second solo they really kick it in a high gear. So if you haven't heard that song, it's one of my top 5 favorite Metallica songs of all time. So Halo on Fire, and they are playing it live. I don't know if on this recent tour, but on the tour they're doing right now, but on the last couple of shows they've done or tours that they've added it to their live set list. So check it out.
Okay.
Cool. Kenny, I think you're up, buddy.
Okay, I'll go. Okay, my next choice is going to be a song by Steely Dan. Do you guys want to take a guess what song it is?
Reeling in the Years.
Good guess. Steve, you got one?
That was going to be my guess. So
okay.
Maybe Peg.
Okay. The reason that I think Reeling in the Years is the obvious guess is because they hired that guy, Jeff Skunk Baxter. I mean, he wasn't a member of the band. They hired him to come in and just blow the walls off the place. I mean, the guitar work on that song, you know, a lot of their songs are not really rock songs, but that one, baby, it rocks. Make no mistake about it. But the reason I didn't choose that song is because I felt like it was a little obvious. So I'm going to go a little off the beaten path here. This song is Kid Charlemagne. You guys know that song?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay. Now, wasn't a big hit, and it's very jazzy, but this is where it gets interesting. Way back in the 70s, and Steve, I know you're too young to really remember this, but jazz wasn't a thing yet in the 70s. It didn't start to become a thing until like the late 80s because Kenny G really launched this whole resurgence of jazz. But in the 70s, people, you know, there was Chuck Mangione and a couple others, but it wasn't causing a stir. People were not saying, man, we need a jazz radio station or whatever. So I kept seeing this name that would appear like on movie soundtracks or whatever. And because I'm seeing the name frequently, I'm like, this guy there must be something special about him. The name is Larry Carlton, okay? Well, turns out he's one of the premier established jazz guitarists. And I don't know what his age is, but he's been around for a long time. So, and Kid Charlemagne would have been recorded in the 70s. So anyway, I don't know the story behind how he got to be the guitarist on that song, but because it appeared on a couple of the lists I had looked at, I went back and played it, and I was like, wow, how did I miss this? I mean, it's really good. It's not a hard rock song, so you have to come at it from a different angle, but really, really intricate and fantastic guitar work. I think you guys will really like it.
I know that song. I one time at a bar in San Diego, I picked that band. I started like a fun argument with all the people in there. And I said, who's yours? I said, Steely Dan. They're like, oh, okay. And the people were like, I was like, God, I thought someone was going to scream in my face. Nope. It's, the one that we didn't mention last week. I don't think we mentioned it, and I'm senile. Did we mention Eruption last week by Van Halen?
No.
We didn't, but I threw out a disclaimer right at the beginning.
You did.
I said anything by Hendrix or Clapton or Van Halen is probably, you could probably choose that. So we're going to try to challenge ourselves a little more than that. But yes, Eruption is an obvious.
I'm going to disclaim your disclaimer.
Go ahead.
And put in Eruption.
I like it.
And then I think we talked about this briefly before, and that was because Gary Cherone sang for Van Halen, and at first I thought, man, I wonder if Nuno Bettencourt was pissed off. But if you read the liner notes to Extreme's last album called Six, Nuno Bettencourt refers to Eddie Van Halen as King Edward.
Wow.
It's King Edward. I'm like, oh my God. I started crying almost. Like, I know he's talking about Eddie Van Halen. So see when I talk about this, the beginning of He-Man Woman Hater. And I was telling you about the metronomes, Kenny, and he's keeping up with the fastest speed. I'm like, oh my God. So those two, I just want to make sure that we got those mentioned. So my official, it's not really a solo, and this guy, Steve's going to laugh and criticize me, but I'm going to go on a limb. This guy's name is Ricky Wilson. He's a guitar player for the B-52s, the original guitar player. The style that guy picked out just is so unique. It's so incredible. And the guy, died of AIDS, 2 albums and gone. But I go back and listen to his first 2, especially like the first B-52s album, and I'm telling you, it's not electric shredding, but it's shredding. It's just like a more like a Buck Owens type play, or Dick Dale. Yeah. And he's like, and it's just like, wow, like there's a lot going on there, but it's like the mark of any good person and any good endeavor. They make it look easy.
Right. Right. Oh, by the way, huge props to you for throwing out Dick Dale. Good job.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Boyce.
Well, I'm not gonna go surfing with Dick Dale, but I do like his
Mr. Lou.
But so this isn't. I wouldn't classify this as a solo. It's an intro, but it's "When Doves Cry" by Prince. If you listen to the very beginning of that,
oh my God, oh my God,
about the first 10 seconds. He's just wailing on that, playing at lightning speed, and he always makes it look so easy. And that's the most incredible thing. And then just to stay on Prince for a second, if I got turned on, this is probably 20 years ago when Saturday Night Live was still good. He had a song on there. Now it's Fury by Prince. If you listen to that, the live version on Saturday Night Live, that's the first time I heard it. It was incredible, the amount of shredding he did on it. And a lot of it was just like one-handed. Right. And he just, again, made it look so simple, like he was just writing with a pencil.
Right.
Like, it just came so naturally to him. And I think our audience, I think, would really like it, because it really is a nice kind of, it's not your typical Prince song, but it's really a nice rock anthem, and it's got some killer guitar work on it.
Okay.
So.
Just for the record, Purple Rain shows up on virtually every greatest guitar solo. Yeah, it's all over the place. Yeah.
Which is probably one of my least favorite Prince songs.
I'm with you. Yeah. I don't hate it or anything, but as far as the universe of Prince songs, for me, it's played out. Yeah, I don't need to hear it anymore.
There's this band that I know in LA. They start out as My Evolution, and now I think one of them still is a band called Nine Electric. And they've been in the industry for 20 years, and they go places, and they know everybody. They went to Indio. I forgot the name of the festival out there. It's a place about 2 hours east of Los Angeles. Prince played there. They said he played guitar for 30 minutes. They said, other than Hendrix, he's the greatest guitar players ever lived. They were up on stage watching this from the side. They're like, hold it. There's minds just started melting because the guy was just playing. Like, he plays that While My Guitar Gently Weeps, and he goes off on that thing, and then he's just super talented. But go ahead, that's just one thread in.
Well, the fact that he could play virtually every instrument, you know, I mean, obviously very talented. Okay, am I up?
You're up.
Okay, so this I love this one. Okay, so back in the late 70s, whatever, is when I first heard the name Ted Nugent. Okay, now in 1976 or 77, he was a wild man. Okay, I mean, he's this right-wing political guy now, but back in those days, if he had a political angle, we didn't know about it. He was just a crazy guy who said crazy things and did crazy things, and would get up on stage and play like he was out of his mind. And he was especially known for putting on flamboyant live shows and all that, you know. So anyway, I think the first album that really sold lots, it was a double live album. And that was I had heard some of his stuff before that, but that was the first time I sat and listened to like 2 full records back to back to back to back, and decided, like, wow, this guy's good and he can really play guitar. The song Stranglehold, which is the one I'm naming, it was on that, and I liked it so much I went back and got the studio this album version of it because I thought it was that good. But I'm going to also mention, even though the choice here is Stranglehold, for people who are not all that familiar with some of his work, he was the guitarist in that group Damn Yankees, who do that song High Enough, and the guitar solo in that song, even though it's kind of a ballad, the guitar solo is fireworks. It's great, you know. So I highly recommend it. But my choice for this one, Ted Nugent, Stranglehold.
As everyone knows, well, you may not know, we're all big Ted Nugent fans here, so you're preaching to the choir. And
Oh
we're
yeah.
worshiping
Oh
you.
yeah.
Is it my turn or Steve's turn?
Paul, you're up.
Okay.
Well, I just want to throw in something about
Go
Ted
ahead.
Nugent.
Go ahead, please.
He's on my list too. So, yeah, worship Ted Nugent. One of my desert island records is Spirit of the Wild. Came out in like 95, I think it was.
Right.
But the guitar solo, again, it's at the beginning of the song, and he's got one in the middle, but the guitar solo at the beginning of Wrong Side of Town, which is the second
Oh,
track
God.
that CD. Oh, exactly. You just said it. Oh, God. I mean, it is just blazing hot. I mean, it is smoking. I would encourage anybody, if you're not familiar with that record, check it out. There's not a bad song on the entire record.
Very good album.
For those of you, if you've heard of the song Fred Bear, which is probably his most popular song from that era, that's the album that Fred Bear is on. But yes, Wrong Side of Town. Check it out.
Yeah,
Okay.
I love.
All right, we got our warning. So if anybody has final contributions, go ahead and make them, and then we'll wrap it up.
This is beyond classic rock, and I don't know if it was ever played, but this is the area where Steve and I it's gonna say the name, Daryl Dimebag Abbott, Cowboys from Hell, and it's the whole song is a solo, and I could go on for the next 4 hours about Dimebag. And I got a funny story. My buddy of mine's in the metal. We were at this rough bar in Long Beach, California. And there was a rough bar. And there's a giant door painted of Dimebag. And people are like walking by. Some people are even worshiping it as they go to the restroom. And he goes, yeah, I don't think Dimebag's a very good player. And it was like that old F. Hutton commercial. When he said half the restaurant or the bar turned, I said, dude, you need to shut the F up right now. I'm going to disavow you. He's not that good of a player. I'm like, one more word, I'm going to let him kick the shit out of you. Whoops, sorry. And I'm like, dude, you're not in the right place to be talking bad about Dimebag. So shut up. And so anyway, that's my pick, Dimebag.
Okay. All right. If anybody has any final thoughts, we can hear them now. And then if you want to make a contribution to the ever-growing classic rock playlist, we can do that too. So anybody got any thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to add one more. Angus Young, who probably last week I had named my Mount Rushmore, and I named Jimi Hendrix.
Getting bigger?
Fourth one. And I would say I want to edit that and replace Jimi Hendrix with Angus, and it's really because of the longevity of it. They're both phenomenal guitar players. I love them both, but really I think AC/DC has a bigger catalog of work, and for that reason. But my favorite solo from AC/DC is Gone Shootin', which is off of I forget the name of the record, which is Power Age. So which amongst AC/DC purists is always listed as their best record, but
interesting.
But that's my pick is Gone Shootin'.
Okay.
Kenny?
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and add, as my contribution to the growing classic rock playlist, I'm going to go ahead and add Eric Johnson, Cliffs of Dover, simply because last week I added Joe Satriani and Steve Vai, so it only seems honorable that I should add Eric Johnson. So that's it. If you guys have anything, go ahead.
We haven't gotten to this other guy, Randy Rhoads.
Okay, hold that one because we're out of time.
Okay,
so we
can
either do it next time or whatever.
I'll do it next time. Yeah.
Okay.
We'll talk about Randy Rhoads next time.
Okay, all right. We'll go ahead and wrap it up then. Okay, so for this week, this is the great classic rock debate. We're wrapping it up. I'm Kenny.
I'm Paul.
I'm Steve.
And if you're watching right now, please like, comment, and subscribe. We'll love you for that. Don't forget to check out our sister channel, The Great Classic Movie Debate. Until we see you again, later, Gator.
Later, Gators.